One of my favorite school visits this year, I was talking with a 30-year veteran teacher who said to me, we were talking about the work on the Common Core, particularly in mathematics, and she said to me, this has been my best year of teaching of my 30 years. My only regret is that I wasn't able to give the students I had for the first 29 years what I've given my students this year. And what she meant by that, and what she went on to describe, is the extent to which her students owned their own learning, the extent to which her students were able to navigate mathematics on their own, with their own number sense, with their own understanding of the math concepts of the grade. That is what we should all aspire to. How do we make this next year the best year for ourselves and for every one of our colleagues? How do we make sure that this is the year we get furthest towards empowering our students with the knowledge and skills that they need to navigate their learning? And then third, Jefferson talked a lot about citizenship. And I would try and define citizenship in two ways. One, to be an effective and successful citizen, one must have a sense of self-efficacy. One must have a vision of oneself as having agency. How do we develop in young people a sense of agency? Well, there are concrete things we can do in the classroom to build that sense of self-efficacy. We can be specific about our praise. We can respond to the student who's done well, not by saying, "You're so smart," right? But by pointing out what is the behavior that led to the right answer. I like how you figured that out. I like how you didn't understand that, but you went back and you tried again and you got the right answer. I like how you talked about what the author said about that idea to help explain how you were thinking about it. Right? That specific praise is about teaching students that there are behaviors that they can engage in that will help them be successful as learners. It is also about challenging for our students the notion, and this is the work that we've done in prior NTIs around Carol Dweck and others, challenging the notion in popular culture that intelligence is something that is doled out like a soup line before you're born. Right? But rather, intelligence is something that you go get. Smart is something you go get. You get smarter through effective effort. We create classroom environments. One thing I'd be charged to think about this week, how we create classroom environments where students are having that experience, the iterative experience of building skills, seeing how their effective effort helps them do better over time. Right? Helping students see that quiz as an opportunity to learn themselves about where they made a mistake so that they can get better and do better next time. And how do we create for students the same mindset, the same ability to acquire knowledge and improve that students bring to Minecraft, right? Parents in the room know what I'm talking about Minecraft, for sure. Right, but students, when we're talking about Minecraft or Xbox, right, students they have something they want to go get. So they find out, they learn, they do better. And even when they lose, they don't say, "Oh, well, I'll never do that again," right, on an Xbox game. Right, they go back and they figure out, what am I going to do next time differently? Right, that mindset that students bring to their technology learning, we've got to help them develop that about their English language arts learning and their math learning and their science learning and their social studies learning. The notion that effective effort leads to improved performance over time. And we have to develop in students, for them to be good citizens, not just a sense of self-efficacy, but a notion of justice. What is it that they should aspire to for themselves and their community? And the way we develop a notion of justice, yes, we want to expose students to history and to where human society has struggled with questions of justice in the past. We also want to inspire in them the ability to take the perspective of another. Right? Part of what the gift that we give in literature is the experience of seeing the world through another's eyes. And sometimes people critique the Common Core and say, oh, there's so much nonfiction, and there is, because we want to build students' background knowledge. But the Common Core isn't about diminishing our joy, our love, our attention to fiction. It's about expanding our attention to literacy. Right? It's not that we're going to read less fiction and more nonfiction. It's that we're going to read more. And we're going to read more nonfiction, and we're going to read more fiction. We're going to read more, a lot more. We're going to spend a lot more time with text. And as we focus students on fiction, part of what we want to develop in them is the ability to take the perspective of another, because that is essential to citizenship. The successful citizen is able to see the world not only from their own experience and articulate their own needs and interests, but is able to identify, understand, and acknowledge the needs and interests of others, and to look for ways that the needs of the broader society can be accommodated. So if we take into the week those charges to focus on the building of knowledge and vocabulary in the early grades, to see our task as equipping our students with the ability to learn independently, to read independently, to reason mathematically independently, and the importance of teaching our students to be good citizens through self-efficacy and perspective taking. If we can take those charges through the week, we can move merely from the pretty language of college and career and citizenship, the pretty language of Jefferson about the objects of primary education, towards the real day-to-day classroom practices in which we live that language, in which we live those principles. What are the things that have to happen differently on the first day of school in September, the 40th day of school, the 70th day of school, the 180th day of school? What are the things that have to be different so that our students will be better prepared for college and career success? A couple of weeks ago, we announced last year's graduation rate data. It was encouraging in that we made progress as a state. 74.9% graduation rate, which is dramatically better than it was 5 years ago or even 10 years ago, even as we raised standards. And people warned that with higher standards, students wouldn't be able to graduate. But the reverse was true. With higher standards, more students are graduating. But yet we all understand that within those numbers is the worrisome fact that too many of our students graduate underprepared for college and career success. Too many of our students end up in remedial courses. Too many of our students don't have the ability to pursue their dreams in college and career. We have more work to do, even as we celebrate the successes we've had. And we understand in this room that incremental progress is to be celebrated and built upon. So I'll close with this thought. Ken Wagner and Kate Gerson and I were talking about today, and one of the things that I'm worried about is that we're at a point in the work where we're past the point of mere inspiration. We're on to the day-to-day, the nuts and bolts. Just inspiring words about why we should do the Common Core, why the Common Core is important. We are well past that. We're at the level of how do we make the work that we're doing as meaningful for students as possible. And Ken made the point that in many ways, we've got to see ourselves as long-distance runners. And it's been a while since I was engaged in regular long-distance running, unfortunately. But long-distance running, the joy of it, the power of it, is the daily discipline. And what we have as a community is that we can bring to bear our daily discipline. We can return to our classrooms and schools and ask, what will we do today that will help us get towards that long-term goal? How do we find joy in that daily discipline? And how do we have perspective about the relationship between today and the long-term goal? We're not going to run a marathon today, right? But we are preparing for the marathon we will run. We're not going to today have every student graduate college and career ready, but that is our aspiration. We're not going to today have every student graduate ready for successful citizenship. But what we can do today is our personal best to advance that long-term goal. That's what Jefferson called us to in describing the objects of education. It is what drew us all to this work, to become teachers and principals and administrators, a passion about doing our personal best each day to get towards that long-term goal of college and career and citizenship readiness for all of our students.